much less dependent than energy than private automobiles. We need to look at new forms of agriculture. We need to rebuild our cities. We need to deal with quality of life. We need to make our places, where we live, places we want to be, not escape from, not suburbs and inner cities that we want to get away from because they're not good places to be. We need to work on our healthcare system, not to patch the problems, but to actually create a healthy society. We need to do that fast. And the model, I would say, that we need is a model that really takes not just environmental issues seriously, but social issues. We cannot have a sustainable society without a just society. No question about it. India and China have every right to demand their share of the pie because we've been taking from them for many, many years. So unless we recognize those interests, and unless we can meet the interests of homeless people, and people of all forms of lower income or other ways of being shut out of the mainstream, unless we can deal with that, we're going to have a repressive society because we can't buy them off with economic growth. So we need a new model of development. Not a model of economic growth, not a model of progress where we expand, but a model of, I call, ingress, where we build internally, where we create a society internally that we can survive with and that can make us better people. And instead, what do we have? $65 million on a new bridge. Do we need a new bridge? $23 million in a highway exchange to get cars from McTavish Road up into the airports. Billions of dollars on a gateway project and new bridges. $350 million on a retractable roof for BC Place. UVic proposing a parking lot, 7-story parking lots. It's incoherent. These policies don't make sense. We don't have time to continue to invest in the past. We have to start to invest in the future. And one thing that does work, that has been shown to work, is slowing down. The greatest change in emissions and the least impact, the most productive impact in slowing down our carbon emissions has been this last year in the recession. And the energy technicians, people like Vaclav Smil at the University of Manitoba, who show that big energy transitions, new forms of energy, take decades to put in place, not years. We can change our energy system much more easily by conserving and building non-energy intensive systems than by creating new sources of supply. We have to reduce our economic flow permanently. We have to do that, and we can't waste time doing it. We need to break the line. We need to look at new forms of economy and what sort of a world do we want? What sort of an ethical world do we want? How are we going to get that? We need to do this with a conversation. We don't need to rush off and do action, believe it or not. The irony of this is all the sort of stampede to windmills and build run-of-river projects or put mirrors in the sky. No. We need to stop. We need to actually say, let's figure out where we're at. This sounds it's an ironic conclusion in a way, because we do need to move quickly, but we need to move quickly thinking and understanding collectively where we are. We need democracy. We need democracy. We need real democracy. Not a democracy where we turn to the government, which is conflicted, and ask it to solve the problem, but where we, the people, make that happen. And we make that happen by discussing things, by openly being willing to break the line and talk about things we haven't talked about, and to do so in ways that provide all kinds of exciting opportunities to rebuild our cities, to rebuild our planet in a way that's sustainable. And I think that's what's at stake when we look at the future of our rivers. We don't need to do that damage. We need to slow down, and we need to think again. We need to rebuild our consciousness, if you want, and move ahead on that basis. Thank you. Oh yeah, sure.
Dr. McGonigal said he'll take a few questions now if you want, and then I'm sure we'll be sticking around later outside to discuss some of these issues after the talk. So if there's any questions.
And comments, discussion, yeah.
Dr. McGonigal, the economy of British Columbia is obviously, as you said, it's deeply netted in this capitalist economic system. It's also very much of a resource-based economy. We have very little of our own self-sustainable food production or materials production. Do you have any sense of a model along the lines that you're proposing that could actually sustain a population of 4 million people in this location?
Well, I don't think it's an end product, an end result that needs to be mapped out right now. I think what needs to do is we need to start taking steps to change it. I mean, it's like the Titanic, right? You don't turn it all at once. So, for example, this money that we're misallocating for infrastructure that's propping up road systems and expanding our dependence on the car, let's stop doing that. Let's start, agriculture. Vancouver Island in the 50s produced 85% of its own food. And there's a huge population at UVic and all throughout Victoria who would love much more to be able to participate in food production. And we don't think about that. Instead, we just go to Thrifty's and to get our food wherever it comes from. So I don't think it's and transportation as well, right? I mean, there are lots of other forms of transportation than dependent on the automobile. I mean, our bus systems, our public transit needs much greater, much bigger expansion so it can be more convenient to use. So I don't. I think the end vision is where we need to get to. I don't think it's that we say. Who was it? Herman Daly said, put out a new direction and people will raise all the problems. Ask them about the problems associated with nuclear power, and oh no, we can fix that, right? So I think what we need to be able to do is have not hope, but self-confidence that we can actually start and make the changes. It will evolve. So I don't know. I don't say that in 10 years we will be completely self-reliant for 4 million people in British Columbia, but we may have a very, very different trading regime where we don't, send cars from the States to Europe and European cars from Europe to Canada and just all these exchanges. We may have complementary trade where we actually, our trade is much more sensitive to what one country can provide for others. So different types of trading regimes, different types of local economy, different types of money systems, new forms of co-ops, not always the same sorts of businesses. So there's a huge array of possibilities. We just have to start. Yep.
I'm visiting from Ontario, and I think we missed a really big opportunity to go in the direction that you were talking about tonight. The auto parts industry and auto industry in general in Ontario has really been hit very hard in the last year or so. And the government's, in its knee-jerk reaction to get things going again, has thrown all kinds of money to kind of prop that system up, where they really had an opportunity to go in a completely different direction. And unfortunately, I'm not sure what the politician sitting in the chair would say with constituents and everything else on his back about jobs and losses and things like that.
Well, it's not, obviously, it's not easy. I mean, if it were easy, we'd have come up with solutions and made changes already. But when you've got a huge industry like that with so many people dependent upon it, and so much tax revenue being generated by the sales of cars and so on, that's why we keep going in that direction. I mean, it's very difficult to tackle those issues, but I think where you could say, well, maybe we could transform the auto industry into production of streetcars or new forms of public transit. I mean, during the Second World War, I'm talking about a wartime emergency, the automobile industry stopped producing cars. And the whole thing was retooled into producing military equipment, right? So that it was possible then. Maybe we could retool it or begin retooling it in new ways. But above all, we don't even talk about that, right? We talk about electric cars. We talk about the clunker program to get old cars off the road so people buy new ones. It's really trying to crank up the old car economy with some bells and whistles. We need to, again, it's the conversation we need to have. How do we deal with those problems?